The first thing I learned about heartbreak was that it doesn't kill you, at least not right away. It lingers, slowly chewing you up from the inside, until you forget what it feels like to breathe without pain. And God, did he leave me gasping. His name was Nathaniel Cross, the lawyer everyone in town admired, the golden boy with ambition carved into his bones. My name is Eli Turner, and 10 years ago, I loved him so fiercely it scared me. Until the night he betrayed me, and I had no choice but to walk away. I swore I'd never return. I swore I'd let his name rot in my memory like an old scar. But scars don't rot. They just sit there, waiting for you to trace them with trembling fingers. And now, here I am, back in this town that feels like a ghost wearing my past, because life, cruel as it is, dragged me here against my will. And he, Nathaniel, isn't the same man I left. He's hollowed out, like someone carved the life out of him and left behind only a shadow. When I saw him collapse outside the courthouse, gasping for air as if the weight of memory finally crushed him, I realized the past wasn't buried at all. It was clawing its way back, and it wanted blood or maybe forgiveness. The courthouse steps were still the same gray stone I remembered, except now they looked older, weathered. Maybe I did too. I had come back for my mother, her illness, her last wish, and I promised myself I wouldn't let him see me. But fate's cruel humor had other plans. Eli, the voice, cracked and hoarse, came from behind me, and I swear my knees nearly buckled. 10 years gone, and his voice still felt like thunder splitting the sky. I turned slowly, the world narrowing until it was just him. Nathaniel Cross. Once the sharpest man I'd ever known, now reduced to this trembling figure, clutching his chest as if something inside him was breaking. His suit was immaculate, but he wasn't. His eyes, those brilliant storm-gray eyes, were drowning. And in that second, I hated him. And I loved him. And I wished I'd never come back. "You look like hell," I said, because cruelty was easier than kindness. A laugh broke from him, dry and bitter. "You always did know how to say hello." The years fell away like ash, leaving me standing in the wreckage of a love I'd buried but never mourned. I remembered the nights he held me, the promises whispered against my skin, the fire we thought was indestructible. And I remembered the moment it shattered. The headline, the betrayal, the look on his face when I confronted him and he didn't fight for me. I'd left that night with nothing but rage and tears. And now he stood before me, a man ruined by time and regret. "Why are you here, Eli?" His voice cracked, and the question hung between us like smoke. I wanted to tell him the truth. I came back because family pulls you into places you swore you'd never return to. But I also wanted to lie, to tell him it was none of his damn business. So I settled for silence. He stepped closer, and I felt the ghost of his presence, the warmth I used to crave. 10 years, he whispered, and I still think about you every single day. My chest tightened. You should have thought about me before you broke me. The night I left, Nathaniel had chosen ambition over love. He was on the cusp of a political career, and I was the inconvenient truth he couldn't afford to hold on to. The small-town boy he loved wasn't fit for the man he needed to be. At least that's what he told himself, what he told me. And now, looking at him, I wondered if success had tasted as sweet as he thought. His hands trembled as he shoved them into his pockets. "I made a mistake, Eli." His voice cracked under the weight of it. "The biggest damn mistake of my life." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "And you think 10 years later, a confession's going to fix it?" "No," he admitted softly. "But I think seeing you again might kill me faster than my guilt already is." For the first time, I saw the truth in his eyes. Nathaniel Cross was not the man who had betrayed me. He was the ruin of him, and I didn't know whether to burn him again or try to salvage what was left. That night, I sat in my mother's house, listening to the hum of the oxygen machine, the soft whistle of her breathing. She looked fragile, more fragile than I'd ever seen, and guilt gnawed at me for not coming back sooner. "Eli," she whispered, her hand cold in mine. "I saw him today." I froze. She didn't need to say his name. "You still love him," she said, as if it were fact. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to tell her love doesn't survive betrayal. But the ache in my chest told another story. The following week, I saw him again. Not by choice, but because small towns don't let you hide. At the diner, at the grocery store, at the corner where our paths had once crossed 100 times before. Each time, his eyes found mine like they were starving, and each time, I turned away, until the night I couldn't. It was raining, the kind of storm that soaks you to the bone. I'd gone out for air, trying to escape the suffocating weight of my mother's failing health. And there he was, standing under the streetlight, drenched, waiting. "Eli," he whispered when I stopped in front of him, water dripping from his hair. "Please, just give me one night. One chance to explain." The rain blurred everything, but not his desperation. "One night," I said, my voice shaking. "And after that, we go back to being strangers." He nodded, but his eyes burned with something dangerous, something I wasn't sure I could survive again. And for the first time in 10 years, I let him lead me back into the storm. The motel room smelled of mildew and old cigarettes, but it was the only place that felt neutral, where the ghosts of the past wouldn't immediately crawl out of the walls. Nathaniel sat on the edge of the bed, his wet suit clinging to him, hair plastered to his forehead. I leaned against the door, arms crossed, trying not to let my heart thunder too loud in the silence. "This isn't a good idea," I muttered. He looked up at me, and for a second, the boy I had loved flickered in his expression. Vulnerable, frightened, hungry for a chance neither of us deserved. "I know," he said quietly, "but I need to tell you everything I didn't say back then, even if you walk out after." I wanted to laugh in his face. I wanted to scream, but instead, I stood there, dripping water onto the carpet, my body torn in two by memory. He began slowly, like he was unwrapping a wound. "When I chose my career over you, I thought I was protecting both of us. I told myself you'd hate me less if I pushed you away than if you stayed and watched me drown in a world that would never accept us." My fists clenched. "You don't get to rewrite it as some noble sacrifice. You left me because I wasn't good enough for the man you wanted to be." His face crumpled. "No, I left you because I was a coward. I thought ambition could fill the hole you left. Didn't. It never did." I wanted to stop listening, but his voice carried a rawness I'd never heard before, something stripped of pride and carefully rehearsed speeches. This was Nathaniel without the armor. "You don't know what it was like, Eli," he continued, hands shaking. "My father breathing down my neck, telling me I'd never make it if I didn't play the perfect son, the perfect man. The partners at the firm warning me to clean up my image. I felt like if I chose you, I'd lose everything. And the sickest part is I did. Because I lost you." The room spun with his words, and for a moment, the 10 years between us vanished. I remembered his lips against mine, the warmth of his hand on my back, the way his voice softened when it was just the two of us. But then the betrayal roared back, sharp and merciless. "You could have fought for me," I snapped. "You could have told them to go to hell. But you didn't. You watched me walk out, and you let me believe I was disposable." He flinched as if I'd struck him. "And that's the choice I regret every single day of my life." The silence between us was a battlefield. I could feel his desperation pressing against my anger, neither of us willing to break. Finally, I pushed off the door and moved to the window. Rain streaked down the glass, distorting the world outside. "You don't get to come back into my life just because you're lonely," I said, my voice low. "You don't get to drag me back into that fire." Behind me, his voice cracked. "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking for forgiveness. Just once. Before I lose you forever." I closed my eyes, my chest burning. Forgiveness. A word that felt too heavy, too complicated. I wasn't sure I had it in me. When I turned, he was staring at me like a drowning man who had spotted the shore. His gray eyes were soaked with regret, his body trembling under the weight of what he had lost. And the truth hit me like lightning. I still loved him. God help me, I still did. The next morning, I tried to pretend none of it happened. I left the motel before he woke, the sky still painted in bruises of dawn. My mother needed me, and the last thing I wanted was to spiral back into Nathaniel's orbit. But small towns don't grant you mercy. By noon, the entire diner knew I was back. By evening, whispers of me being seen with Nathaniel spread like wildfire. And by the time I walked into the grocery store, Mrs. Callahan was staring at me with that mix of pity and judgment I'd always hated. "You be careful, Eli," she murmured as I passed. "Men like him don't change." Her words clung to me like smoke. Later that night, I sat by my mother's bedside again, watching her chest rise and fall. She stirred, her thin hand reaching for mine. "Did you see him?" she asked, her voice faint but sharp. I didn't answer. Her eyes, clouded but wise, searched mine. "Don't let bitterness take your life, son. It's heavy, heavier than love." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat nearly choking me. "He doesn't deserve another chance." She smiled weakly. "Maybe not, but you deserve peace." The following week, Nathaniel showed up at my mother's porch. He didn't knock. He just stood there, suit jacket hanging from his arm, eyes hollow. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said simply. I almost slammed the door. Almost. But the look in his eyes stopped meth kind of look that made me wonder if he was unraveling right there on my doorstep. "Then don't," I said flatly. "But don't think for 1 second that changes what you did." He nodded, accepting the weight of my anger like he knew he deserved every ounce. Then he leaned forward, his voice low, desperate. "Let me help. With your mom. With anything. Please, Eli. I need to do something that matters." I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to keep him as far away as possible. But exhaustion was stronger than pride. So I let him in. It was strange, watching Nathaniel move through my mother's house like he belonged there. He fetched water, helped her sit up, even read to her in that steady lawyer's voice that once made juries lean forward and listen. And for a few moments I caught glimpses of the man I used to love. The man who held me through thunderstorms, who whispered secrets under the blanket of night. But every time those memories stirred, I crushed them down. Because the truth was, no matter how kind he acted now, the boy I was 10 years ago had been left to shatter alone. Yet, as my mother drifted into sleep, her frail hand curled in his, I felt the walls I'd built begin to tremble. And I hated myself for it. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I walked him out. The porch light cast a soft glow on his face, and for once, he looked younger, almost boyish, stripped of the arrogance he once wore like armor. "Thank you," I said quietly, surprising myself. He shook his head. "Don't thank me. I should have been here all along." I stared at him, searching for the lie, but there wasn't one, just broken honesty. And against all reason, I felt the smallest flicker of hope. The days blurred into a fragile routine. Nathaniel came by often, under the excuse of helping my mother. Sometimes he brought soup from the diner, sometimes medicine from the pharmacy. He always carried himself like a man trying to earn back a place he'd abandoned, and I hated that it was working on me. The house was quieter with him in it, but not emptier. He filled the silence with soft words, small gestures, things I'd forgotten he was capable of. He'd sit by my mother's bed, reading from her favorite novels, his voice low and steady, and she'd fall asleep with a faint smile on her lips. And me? I watched from the doorway, torn between the fury of remembering how he once let me go and the ache of seeing how tender he could still be. One evening, after dinner, he lingered in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, washing dishes like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You don't have to do that," I said, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. He looked over his shoulder, water dripping down his forearm. "I want to." I hated how easily the words slipped out of him, how familiar it felt, like no time had passed, like 10 years hadn't turned us into strangers. "Stop trying so hard," I muttered. "It doesn't erase what you did." He set the plate down, drying his hands slowly. Then he turned to me, eyes steady. "I know it doesn't. But it's the only way I know how to show you that I'm not the same man I was." The kitchen light flickered above us, and for a moment, I thought about the last time we'd stood this close. 10 years ago, in a different kitchen, in a different life, when I believed forever meant something. And before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Then who are you now, Nathaniel?" His breath hitched. "Someone who would burn the world down just to keep you for one more day." I turned away, the heat of his words too much. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" he asked softly. "They're true." The next morning, I woke to the sound of my mother humming faintly. Nathaniel had already let himself in something that should have infuriated me but didn't, and was helping her sit up with a gentle patience I'd almost forgotten he possessed. She caught my eye over his shoulder and winked. The betrayal was clear. My own mother, conspiring against me, letting him inch closer into a life I'd sworn he no longer deserved. After she fell asleep again, I cornered him on the porch. "You need to stop coming around so much." He looked at me, hurt flashing across his face. "Do you really want me to?" The truth was tangled on my tongue. Yes, because every moment with him felt like playing with fire. No, because every part of me still wanted the flames. Instead, I said, "I don't know." His jaw tightened. "Then let me stay until you do." Later that week, the town buzzed with whispers. The lawyer and the boy he once left behind, spotted together again. People watched us at the diner, eyes sharp with curiosity, judgment simmering just beneath polite smiles. "Small towns never forget," Nathaniel muttered as we left, his hand brushing mine by accident or maybe not. "Neither do I shot back. But even as I said it, my chest tightened at the way his fingers lingered near mine, as if they remembered the shape of me better than my mind wanted to admit. One stormy night, I found him sitting on the porch steps after everyone had gone to bed. Rain drizzled down, soaking his shirt, but he didn't move. "You'll catch pneumonia," I said, stepping out with an umbrella. He glanced up, his hair plastered to his forehead. "Wouldn't be the worst thing." I rolled my eyes and dropped the umbrella between us. "Stop being dramatic." But then he looked at me, really looked, and said, "I'm not. I don't know how to live without you, Eli." I thought I could, but the truth is, I've been dead for 10 years. The words gutted me. I wanted to push him away, but instead, I sank down beside him, the rain seeping into my clothes. "You don't get to say that," I whispered. "You don't get to make me feel sorry for you after everything." He reached for my hand, hesitated, then pulled back. "I'm not asking for sorry. I'm asking for a chance to prove I won't let you down again." The storm raged on around us, but inside, I felt something breaking loose, something I'd locked away for too long. The following days were heavier. My mother's health declined rapidly, the doctors whispering things I didn't want to hear. Nathaniel never left my side. He was there through every long night, every panic, every tear I tried to swallow. One night, when I thought she might not make it till morning, I broke. He found me in the kitchen, fists pressed to my eyes, my whole body shaking. Without a word, he pulled me into his arms. I wanted to shove him away. I wanted to scream at him to leave me alone. But instead, I let myself sink into him, breathing in the warmth I'd craved for a decade. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt safe. When morning came and my mother was still breathing, I caught him watching me with that look again, the look that said he'd never stopped loving me. "Stop staring," I muttered, embarrassed by how much I wanted him to keep going. He smiled faintly. "I can't. I've been starving for you too long." My heart clenched. I should have told him to leave. I should have closed the door for good. But instead, I whispered, "Don't make promises you can't keep this time." His voice was steady, unshakable. "I won't. Not again." And God help me, I almost believed him. That evening, when the sky bled orange and pink across the horizon, we stood on the porch again. The silence stretched, thick with everything we hadn't said. Finally, I turned to him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd chosen me back then?" He exhaled slowly, eyes on the horizon. "Every damn day. And I'd give anything to go back and do it differently." I stared at him, searching for the lie. But for once, there wasn't one. Just a man stripped bare, drowning in regret and hope all at once. And I realized with a sharp, aching clarity. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about him deserving it. Maybe it was about me being tired of carrying the weight of hatred. Still, the road ahead was fragile, uncertain. So I said the only thing I could. One step at a time, Nathaniel. His lips trembled into the faintest smile. I'll take it. As long as it's with you. The end came softly. My mother's breaths grew shallow, each one like a fragile thread unraveling, until finally, in the stillness of dawn, the last one slipped free. I sat at her bedside, her hand in mine, and for the first time in a decade, I allowed myself to cry without shame. She had been my anchor, the only reason I'd come back to this town, and now she was gone. The house felt cavernous without her. Every creak a reminder of what I'd lost. Nathaniel was there. He didn't speak, didn't try to offer empty words. He just stood in the corner, watching me with eyes that carried their own grief. When I finally looked up, broken and exhausted, he opened his arms, and I fell into them. I should have pushed him away, but in that moment I couldn't. The funeral drew the entire town. Faces I hadn't seen in years gathered to pay their respects. Whispers followed me everywhere about my mother, about Nathaniel, about us. But when I stood at the graveside, none of it mattered. The world blurred into the sound of dirt hitting wood, the finality of it sinking into my bones. Nathaniel stood beside me, a quiet shadow, his hand brushing against mine. He didn't grab it, just let it hover close like an offer. And in the weight of that silence, I slipped my fingers into his. It was instinct, not forgiveness. But it was something. That night, the house was unbearably quiet. I wandered through the rooms, touching the furniture, the walls, the places where my mother's laughter still echoed. Nathaniel followed me, silent, until I finally turned. What happens now? I asked, my voice cracking. He looked at me as if the answer was obvious. Whatever you want. If you tell me to leave tomorrow, I'll go. If you want me to stay, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be the man you needed 10 years ago. The weight of his words pressed down on me. For so long, I'd carried anger like armor, convinced it was the only thing keeping me whole. But standing there, with his eyes burning into mine, I realized anger hadn't kept me whole. It had kept me alone. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. You broke me once. His voice was a whisper. I know. And if you do it again, I won't survive it. He swallowed hard, his hand trembling as he reached for mine. Then I won't let it happen. For a long time, I stared at him, searching for cracks, for lies, for the man who once let me go. But all I found was someone stripped bare by regret, begging for a chance to put us back together. And for the first time, I let myself believe it might be possible. The weeks after my mother's passing blurred. Grief hung heavy, but Nathaniel stayed. He cooked meals when I forgot to eat, sat with me in silence when the weight of loss was too much, and never once pushed for more than I could give. Slowly, the walls I'd built began to crumble. We started with small things: coffee together in the morning, quiet walks through town, late-night conversations that stretched into dawn. One evening, I found him in the living room, reading one of my mother's old books aloud. His voice carried through the house, steady and warm, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't the man I'd once loved or the boy I'd lost. It was someone new, forged by time and regret, softer but stronger. And maybe that was enough. One night, as autumn settled over the town, we sat on the porch, a blanket draped over our shoulders. The air was crisp, the stars sharp above us. I used to dream about this, Nathaniel admitted quietly. About sitting with you like this, with no lies between us. I leaned back, staring at the sky. Dreams don't erase the past. No, he agreed, but they can give us a future. I turned to him, studying his profile in the starlight. His jaw was tense, his eyes glistening. And in that moment, I knew the truth. I still loved him. Not the way I did 10 years ago, blindly and recklessly, but deeper, tempered by scars, cautious but real. So I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. Then let's stop dreaming and start living. His breath caught, And then he smiled a small, trembling smile, but real. The next day, the town's whispers grew louder. People stared as we walked through the square together, his hand brushing against mine, his presence beside me unashamed. For once, I didn't care. When Mrs. Callahan gave me that same look of pity and warning, I met her eyes and said, "He's different now." She raised a skeptical brow. "And if he's not?" I squeezed Nathaniel's hand tighter. "Then I'll survive it. Because I'm not that boy anymore either." Our love didn't heal overnight. There were fights, old wounds reopening, moments when I doubted whether forgiveness was even possible. But there were also nights of laughter, mornings of quiet peace, and kisses that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Slowly, we built something new, something imperfect, fragile, but ours. And as winter came, I realized the truth my mother had tried to teach me. Bitterness is heavier than love. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant finally allowing myself to live again. With him. On Christmas Eve, we stood in front of the fireplace, the glow of the flames casting shadows across the room. Nathaniel held me, his chin resting on my hair, and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled into his chest. "I did. You're just too stubborn to stay gone." He laughed softly, kissing the top of my head. "Then I'll be stubborn for the rest of my life." And in that moment, with the warmth of the fire, the weight of his arms, and the ghost of my mother's smile lingering in the house, I finally believed it. Love had broken me once, but now, against all odds, it had put me back together. And this time, I wasn't letting go. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.